Hi, welcome to That'll Do Garage. Today we're going to be working on the new 2007 Audi A4. Just going to focus on the air conditioning today, probably do some electrical troubleshooting, and if we get the system running, we'll hook up some gauges and do a performance check. Let's get going. So if we are lucky and we get the system going today, we're going to need this. These are some tools I picked up from O'Reilly's. Now they do like a rental thing, basically free. I called them up and I said, hey, I need to do some AC service. Could I get some AC tools, please? And they ordered this from their warehouse, got it the next day. So these are just gauges with hoses. And then this has a vacuum pump in it, brand new, not been opened. I can use this for, I think it's 48 hours. And then I just bring them back and they give me 100% refund. That's how their rental tool system works. So this was like 350 bucks or something. So it's nice to not have to buy this when I only need it once every 2 years. But if we get the electrical side of things working today, we'll be hooking this up and making sure the system is cycling at the proper pressures and everything's working as it should. If we have to drain the system, like if I need to do a compressor or anything like that, we'll be using the vacuum pump to evacuate the system. So hopefully we get to this point today. So a quick refresher on AC operation here. Basically way down there underneath the alternator and power steering pump, we have an AC compressor. And that's belt driven off the engine. And it does exactly what it sounds like. It takes a gas and compresses it. And then it goes up here through a condenser up here in the front, which is basically a big radiator. It's like a heat exchanger. And then there's more hoses that go up here, and inside the dashboard there's an evaporator, and the gases flow up here through these hoses and they go to the evaporator. That gets really cold, and then the blower motor pushes air over that really cold evaporator, and therefore you have AC. So these lines are a closed loop, meaning it starts down at the compressor and it goes through the evaporator and the condenser, and then it goes back and it starts again, and it just keeps cycling back and forth. And it's the compressor's job to maintain proper pressure and keep everything cycling. The exact volume of refrigerant that's in the system is very important. There's always a little bit of oil involved to keep the compressor from getting fried. And there's some pressure switches, and there's the stuff on the dash, and there's quite a few elements to this. So basically, if anything is wrong, if the refrigerant's low, or the pressure switch is bad, or the compressor is unhappy, or the dash switch isn't working, any of these things will make your AC not work. So the symptom we have with this car is the blower motor turns on, and you have airflow, but it's not cold. And when I came up here and I looked at the compressor, you can just see the pulley on the front there, the very bottom one, way down here. It's got a clutch on it. And what I don't know is, was the clutch engaged? Basically, when the system is modulating pressure, it'll close the clutch, and that drives the compressor. And then when pressure gets high enough, it'll open the clutch, and then pressure will fall, and then it'll engage the clutch, and pressure will rise, and back, forth. So you want to make sure that the compressor clutch is cycling, and that's what I don't know. So I just ran the car for a minute to see. I turned on the air conditioning, and I was trying to see if the compressor was turning. And to be honest, it's really hard for me to tell. I could definitely see that the pulley was turning, the outside piece on the very edge, but I couldn't see if the clutch was engaged. So I think what we're going to do now is probably get underneath the thing and see if I can see it from the bottom. The reason that's important is the clutch is kind of two pieces. There's like the inside part that's actually connected to the compressor, and there's the outside part that's connected to the belt and spinning. And if those two are not, if the clutch is not engaged, the outside one will be spinning, the inside one will not, and therefore the compressor is not powered. So let's get this up in the air, and I think I will start it again and see if I can see if the compressor's turning. Otherwise, we're gonna pull the connector off the AC compressor that provides power to the compressor clutch, and I'm gonna see if there's actually power and ground being provided to the clutch. That will also tell me what's going on. All right, down here we can get a better look at the AC compressor. You can see there's a couple of lines coming in and out right over here. These are the ones that go to the condenser and evaporator. This is our belt drive area, and the clutch is in there. We have an electrical connection back here that will power everything, and could be like a pressure switch too. And I should clearly say I am not an expert. We're figuring this out as we go. I just kind of know how they should work. So I'll probably do some stuff wrong, and that's okay. But let's see how far we can get. Maybe we'll accidentally fix the thing. Okay, so I just did my first thing. Actually, my first thing was I checked all the fuses related to the air conditioning, just to make sure I wasn't chasing my tail on something easy and dumb like that. And all the fuses I can quickly find are okay. The next thing I did was I took a look at this AC compressor, and like I said, my understanding of the clutch is that it needs to kick on and off, and that's usually controlled by several switches, and the clutch will turn on and off. So I looked at the AC compressor to find an electrical connection, and I only found one. So this is either the connection for the clutch, or it's some sort of pressure switch or something that I don't understand, because this is a German car. So who knows, it could be related to the rear brake lights. But I want to do my first test. So I got the key on right now, and my assumption is that I should have power here. This is a test light, and I'm providing ground through this motor mount. So if this doesn't work, my test is either a crappy test, like this is a bad ground, or my test light's broken, or my probe is too big to fit in these pins, or I don't have power. So I have to go through all of these things and really find out, is this test okay? Should this thing be powered right now? Is it even what I think it is? So I'm gonna work on that. We'll see what happens here. Okay, so I got my first results here. I did move my ground from wherever I was over there to over here on the actual compressor, since it's bolted to the engine block and cleaner. So that should be a good ground. And then I put my test light in each of those pins, and one of them definitely has power. And that's a good sign. So then the other question is, does the other pin give it ground? I don't know, I could check that. But whatever this switch is, I do know that the system is now giving it power. And also when the key is on but the engine is off, the power is not on. And when the engine is running, it did have power. So it would make sense that that is the system sending power to the AC compressor to start working. Okay, so I just stepped up a level. I grabbed my multimeter and I actually measured the voltage available at this connector. And with the engine running and the AC turned to on, I got 9.6 volts. So that's good, because I verified power and ground available at this plug. But is 9.6 okay? Should it be 12? I don't know. Most of the electronics on a car are 12 volts, but sometimes they modulate stuff where it's like 5 volts means off and 10 volts means on, you know, something like that. So we'll see. I got to keep looking here. Well, some might call this cheating. I like to think of it as creative problem solving. I just so happen to have two of these Audi A4s. This one's silver. This is my daughter's, and the blue one is my son's. Yes, I bought them matching cars, although they are 1 year apart. This is an 06 and that's an 07. Anyway, I'm gonna walk over here and do the same thing, because my daughter's AC is working. And you'll notice this is a little bit different. You know, that one had a switch on the back. The body was built into the compressor. This one has a little pigtail and the plug runs up here on the side. So I'm gonna disconnect that and measure the power there and see how it compares to the blue car. Well, I got that bugger off of there, started it up. Did the same thing, tested it with the engine running and the AC on, and I had 5.6 volts on this guy, whereas I had 9.6 or something on the blue car. So that's weird. Maybe 5 volts is on and 10 volts is off. I don't know. Time to go visit the Google machine. Okay, so that was really confusing, but I think what I learned is this AC compressor is a constant on situation. That's why I couldn't see the clutch on the front turning on and off like I'm used to on domestic cars, because the compressor is always on, always spinning. And what happens is there's like a variable valve built into the back of the compressor that changes the volume of the compressor, and that's how they control the pressure. So my guess is that the higher voltage that I saw on this car means, hey, compressor, change your volume to do more compressing. And the lower voltage that I saw on my daughter's car means, hey, compressor, you're doing okay, throttle back, take it easy. But, you know, all of this is uncertain and vague because it's really hard to distinguish this stuff. Like, so many people post so many things on forums, and it's like, who do I listen to? And this guy's got one that's, you know, 2 years older or 2 years newer, and then they changed the brake tail light assembly, and that affects the way the coolant touches the air filter, and then therefore, you know, like, holy smokes, I can't track all this stuff. So I'm kind of flying blind, but that would make sense. And some of the dudes say the first step is really to check system pressure. So I think I'm going to hook up those gauges to the high and low port and see what we have for pressure, and maybe that'll give me some more information. Who knows? All right, so here's our AC service ports. This is the evaporator that I was talking about. Kind of functions like a heater core, you know. This gets really cold and then air blows over it. So you can see there's 2 lines coming in and out, and we have 1 service port here and 1 service port here. I'm just gonna go ahead and hook up the gauges, and we'll see what we have for pressure in the system. Okay, so I got my blue hooked up and my red hooked up, and these are not the same. You cannot mix them up. So this is called low pressure, or low side and high side. And you come up here to my manifold hanging on the hood like all the cool kids do. And you can see my pressure on both sides is about 40 PSI. And so I'm pretty sure that that's super low. The other folks on the internet have like 150, 125 PSI. So I think what this means is the system is super low. And the fix is probably, the correct fix would be to suck it down with the vacuum pump, evacuate everything, and then start from scratch with a little bit of oil for the compressor and exactly the right amount of Freon. I don't know how to do that with this O'Reilly setup. I might have to buy just cans of Freon or something like that. We'll see. There should be a label somewhere that dictates exactly how much Freon it's supposed to have. Here we go. Charge R134A, 500 grams plus or minus 20 grams. So that's the idea. So what this means essentially, I think, is that my charge is too low. There's only, you know, 200 grams in there or something like that. And the compressor is not kicking on because the charge is too low. And the computer is saying, hey, the pressure is too low, so compressor, you should start running. But because the pressure is too low, it can't. Or the charge is too low, I think. Gosh, are you confused? I'm confused. Holy smokes. Back to Google. Okay, so according to Rick's Auto Repair on the interwebs, I should be seeing, since it is 81 degrees in here, I should be seeing approximately 82, 83 PSI on these gauges. And we'd call this a static pressure test. That means the compressor's off, the engine's off. Theoretically, the 2 sides of the equation will have equalized, and that's why we see the same pressure on both sides. but I should be seeing 80 something, you know, 83, 85, somewhere in there. So I have low static pressure. And if you ask the interwebs what low static pressure means, I think it means we got a leak somewhere. That means the system is low on refrigerant and we probably have a leak. Now, it's not catastrophic because it's at 40 PSI, not 0. It's not like the compressor exploded or we have a huge hole in the condenser or evaporator, but it's more than likely that we have, you know, some fitting or an O-ring or something, a pinhole in a line, and it allowed the system to leak down to 40 PSI. You know, leak down from 80 PSI to 40 PSI. And at 40 PSI, the strength wasn't high enough to overcome the, you know, the strength of the hose. So I'm gonna guess that's what's happening. We probably have a leak somewhere. And I think what I should do then, essentially, is suck it down with the vacuum pump and do a leak test. And in that way, it sucks this all the way down to 0, and then it actually sucks it into negative territory, probably around 14, 15 inches of mercury. And then we let it sit for a while, 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And you see if it falls or if it stays there. And then you either pass or fail the leak test. And then you can respond accordingly. But if that doesn't go well, if it fails, then we're back to finding a leak, in which case you cruise around. Well, you put some ultraviolet dye in the system through one of these ports, and then you cruise around the whole system with a UV light, and eventually you'll see the bright green dye, you know, collecting around a fitting or something like this, or collecting around the union over here, and then you know what's leaking, and then you can fix it. So I probably need to get a UV light and some dye. I don't know. I'm gonna go ask Rick some more questions. Okay, so I added a off-the-shelf can of Freon to try to get my static pressure up, and one can brought me from 40 PSI to 80 PSI, which is right where it's supposed to be. So then I thought, well, gee, maybe it'll run. So I have an engine running right now. I have the climate control set to automatic, and it should be turning on the air conditioning. But you can see that they're both still at 80. It's not cycling. Another telltale sign the compressor's not working is both of these lines are the same temperature. And when the AC is working, you'll see that one of them gets really hot and the other one is gonna be pretty cool. So clearly it's not cycling. So now I can at least say my static pressures are where they should be. And now I can ask, okay, why is it not cycling? Right, so to complicate matters further, I have another problem, which is that when I have the HVAC system on, I'm often getting no airflow, like 0. And this happened when I first started the car, and I just thought it was weird because it hadn't been sitting for a long time. So I kind of disregarded it. And then on my test drive, before I bought it, it did start blowing air. It just wasn't cold. So I thought, well, I can fix the AC. But now I see it sitting in the garage here, and you can see I'm on the dash and my recirculate feature is off. But up here, the doors are super closed. You can hear the fan motor is running. And so in that configuration, those doors should be open. So let me see what happens when I turn the key off again. Or maybe I can just switch this off. So the fan stopped. Nope, the fan did not stop. The fan is still on, even though that thing is off. That doesn't seem right. Look at that. It's off, but you can hear the fan is still on. That's messed up. So I turned off the key, and then the fan stopped and these doors opened back up. So I'm starting to think that that control module might be wonky, because it's commanding recirculate when the button is not pressed. It's got the fan running even when the module is off. That's really weird. I did check the heat too on my test drive, and that seemed to work okay. Like I could switch it between all the modes, and the fan was working properly. So we must have like an intermittent issue with that HVAC control or something. And so that makes me wonder, is that screwing up my AC system as well? Like right here, we clearly see it's messing up with the recirculation doors. The fan kept running even after the HVAC was off. So it's possible that it's just not commanding the compressor to turn on. Very odd. So I decided I'm not interested in messing with that. I just went on eBay and ordered up a new control module. It was like 29 bucks and it'll be here in 3 days. So we'll pop that thing out, pop that thing in, and see if it's working better. And I'm not really gonna invest a whole lot more time in the AC side of things because the whole problem could be that control module. So I'm gonna go ahead and return these items to O'Reilly so I don't get charged $1 million. And I'll get back to you when the control unit arrives. Bought these off the old interwebs. It's basically just an assortment of different keys that work with all the different radios. So this one looks like this. Got a little recess on the end there. You just push it in until she clicks. And that's it. Now I should be able to pull. Of course I need 2 more for the bottom. So I'm going to use these other ones here. See if that works. Well, that's already a good sign. Last time I was doing this, it wouldn't shut off at all. So now I'm gonna go open the hood and check that recirc door and see if that's working properly. All right, here we go. And turn on the fan. Come over here. Recirc door is open. And let's close that. Oh, you know what? I might need engine vacuum to close that. Try starting it up. Alright, started the engine. Fan is on. Let's close the recirc door. Doors on and close. Kind of weird. Well, that definitely resolved our fan control issue, but the recirc doors are still not wanting to respond properly, and also the AC is still not on. So I don't know, baby steps, I guess. Put this bugger back together and come up with another bright idea.